So, as you may remember, I am Eric Eilertson. I am not Bharat, and I'm not Varun. They were not able to make the trip, so I will be presenting on their behalf. Um, I don't know a whole lot about Flashless boot, so we're going to go through this together and see what we can learn. So, the problem statement is we'd like to eliminate as many of the flashes in a system as possible. So there's some security reasons, there's some just maintenance, some RAS reasons to do this. So some of this comes down to like there's functional issues with the non-volatile boot media. So if there's a functional issue, it leads to downtime. And there's also security issues. What are the boot kits in here? How does that work? And also, if you have a recovery, how do I execute the recovery flow? And what if the flash got into a weird state? Do I have A/B flashes, or do I have it all in the same image? There's complexities with managing a flash. And also, there are many, many flashes in a server right now. Every device probably has a flash sitting right next to it. And you've got your CPUs, the BMC, a bunch of GPUs in there, and there's your NICs all have flashes. So there's a lot of these components from different vendors that are going to have different quality around them, different environmental, they're going to fail at different rates for different reasons. So if we can reduce the complexity there, we can simplify our lives quite a bit. So as we're going through, the manageability, there's more firmware, we have more updates. So now we're touching all of these flashes. There's a touch to these flashes. If you've got 100 components in there, there's probably an update every day that's being pushed out. So you're constantly touching these flashes. You're doing all these updates, and you're just having wear and tear on there. Let's see here. So what are the top end places where we can start removing some of this boot media? So the CPU and host are kind of some obvious, easy ones to do. But also look at all the PCI devices that you have in there. All of your NICs, all of your GPU, your accelerators, things like that. And also maybe even the DCSCM could have potentially at some point have the flash removed from there. So right now, I guess some of the investigation areas where they're working at right now is, so one of the stake is that like right now there's no MCTCP T0 in the immutable hardware in ROM. So we're going to boot over I3C as early as a boot link layer. And right now there's some debate over, do you leave the first immutable code in a flash? So you still would have flash here, but this is a stepping stone so that you could do some updates before ultimately you're going to boot over I3C from perhaps the BMC. So the BMC might, at this point, would be the only, once you get to that point, the BMC is the only place that has flash in the system. Or the BMC could pull off from the network too if you wanted to, I guess. So another issue that they're dealing with is how do you deal with address assignment? Which device is this, and where is it pulling its boot from? Where's the image being pulled from? And also, is it a push or a pull model? Whose request? How do we get the firmware to it when you're trying to boot? Now that we've got the flash removed. So these are things that I guess they're discussing as part of a small OCP group on figuring out how do we simplify the boot process. And also, for firmware streaming, what's the protocol? I think right now the thought is MCTP, and it's link layer independent. So this could be over, I guess any link you'd want. So get that's your abstraction layer, so you can, whatever makes sense in your device. Let's see here. So what is the proposed scope? So, there's the early firmware, kind of the first layer code, the boot code, and then you've got some of your remainder firmware where you would have most of your complexity. So right now, the current plan is like if you have your first firmware that might be in a flash as a stepping stone, crawl, walk, run approach, that would have enough. It would basically know how to speak MCTP or I3C to go and fetch the remainder of the firmware from the BMC. So small little shim layer. As you get that figured out, eventually you could take that code that's running on that flash and put it into the ROM of the device. And at that point, then you could remove the flash completely. But you got a stepping stone to get there. Let's see here. So requirements, as we mentioned several times, early on flash, we still have some flash. Long term, we remove that, and it's all at the remote agent. So some things that are not requirements is the platform approach to how to supply the firmware. Where and how the management controller gets this. Is it a flash? Does it go over the network? That doesn't matter. we're going to talk to the BMC, and the BMC, how it deals with it, can do its own thing. And like we said before, it's MCTP is the link layer, and is, we're agnostic to that. Let's see here. So, sorry, this is a very quick talk here, but for the call to action, so they'd like some more participation in this OCP security. I think Bharat and Varun are doing an update in May, and there's the link to the wiki page where they have some more documentation, and I believe there's even some specifications that are written there. So that was a very quick overview. Questions, comments of where I have very limited understanding? I've told you everything I know. Okay. Thank you very much.